Well, hi, Jay. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you today, and thank you so much for bringing your awesome-looking toy with you. I look forward to learning more about that. Could you just start us off by introducing yourself and Damon Motorcycles, please?
Sure, yeah. My name is Jay Giraud. I'm the founder and CEO at Damon Motors, and Damon is the future of motorcycling. Damon is on a mission to revolutionize motorcycling, make it smarter and safer for the world of two-wheel commuters, which is 1.5 billion people daily. It's the largest form of transportation in the world. And we've thought about all of the problems and challenges that motorcycling faces in different parts of the world and redefined a new kind of motorcycling experience, and we built it from the ground up.
Awesome. And I have to say, it looks absolutely amazing. After the call, I'll give you my address so you can send mine over.
I'll send you this one right here.
Awesome. I want to start general by asking you what you think are the main trends and forces that are shaping the future of transportation or the future of mobility, and how you see that space evolving, let's say, within the next decade.
Sure. Well, in the next decade, I don't think it'll change a whole lot, even though people like to think it will. Um, there's obviously been big trends towards electrification, and that's going to continue in a much steeper ramp than we've seen in the previous couple of decades. We're going to see improved autonomous vehicle usage in actual business use cases, such as what we're seeing with cruise automation in San Francisco now already. So we'll see more of that over the coming decade. Other than that, I don't think there's going to be huge changes. You could kind of say that the transportation sector has been evolving in between two ends of the spectrum. On one end of the spectrum is this proliferation of kick scooters and similar type battery powered devices that people ride. And that has made up a whole ton of short commutes. But those short commutes don't collectively put even a measurable dent in global miles traveled. In fact, Uber doesn't even put a 1% dent in global miles traveled, as big and successful as Uber and all of the counterparts of similar Uber type companies are. And so you've got on the one end of the scale that the tiniest short distance commute vehicles that you stand on or you ride on or you sit on for sidewalk trips, let's call it. On the other end of the scale, you've got vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. And that area is starting to get to a point of development where arguably you'll be able to take a short trip in the same way you would in a helicopter, but it'll be much more affordable. And so that might be one end of a big city to the other end of a big city that could take 2 hours of driving, you're going to do in 15 minutes. But obviously, even at the more affordability end of that scale, that's not for everybody. That's for also a really, really tiny number of trips. So will that displace 1% of global miles traveled? Probably 0.00001%. And so in the bulk of it, you're going to have cars and motorbikes. And motorbikes make up the dominant form of transportation around the world at 44% of global miles traveled. So I think in 10 years, the belly of that, from these weird kick scooters to takeoff, vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, you're going to have cars and motorbikes.
And obviously, Damon's motorbike is fully electric. And whenever we speak about the future of transportation, future of mobility, electric vehicles, electric transport is what comes to mind, at least when I think about that future. When you think about that, the EV future, how does Canada's competitiveness in the EV space, how do we rank? How would you rank us or compare us to other developed economies? And what are our strengths, maybe in terms of materials, batteries, R&D production? Where do you see us fitting into that vision?
Well, Canada has always been a supplier of components and technology and parts to mainly to the American and Japanese manufacturers who've set up shop doing car assembly in Ontario predominantly, and doing tier one and tier two parts manufacturing in Ontario predominantly. And in the electric vehicle world, there's been a bit of a segue over from Ontario into Quebec. Quebec has the Propulsion Quebec, which is focused on a lot of the motor development and lithium ion sourcing and battery development. And then over in BC, we've always had a big hydrogen center. And what some people don't know is that a hydrogen powered car is an electric car that just stores energy in the form of hydrogen, converts it to electricity, and powers a motor, an electric motor. And there may or may not be a battery in that line. So over here on the West, we've been doing electric vehicles for 35, 40 years, with companies like Ballard Fuel Cell, AFCC, Mercedes, and a lot of other, similar companies around that. Corvus Energy doing, hybrid marine batteries, really big batteries for freighters and cruise ships and whatnot. So at the supply chain level, I think Canada does well. We always punch above our weight, very much the way we have far smaller budgets and far fewer people in the Olympics, but we take home a disproportionate number of medals. And that's something to be proud of, right? We always punch above our weight. But at the OEM level, there's virtually nobody. There hasn't been an OEM manufacturer of cars that's a Canadian company, I think, ever. I think there's been a couple of attempts, and I made one of those attempts in 2008. Um, and today now we do have some other companies like Tega making electric snowmobiles and watercraft. We have Electromechanica making electric three-wheel cars, and we have Damon Motors in Vancouver making electric motorbikes. And I think that's it at the OEM level. I actually think we should be building more OEMs. I think we're focusing on really the branding opportunity that's available for a country like Canada, who's already exceptionally good at making cars. We've been making cars for other manufacturers for I don't know how long, 40, 50 years. We have all the resources at our disposal to, consolidate some of that supply chain underneath a brand or two.
Let me expand on that a bit by asking you two follow-up questions. The first being, if in terms of this desire to see OEMs come up in Canada, what would be your calls to action, either to government or industry or any other key stakeholder that you would identify in terms of what you would like to see as the first couple of steps to support that? And two would be attracting foreign investors to play a role in that. What do you think we should be doing to support that as well?
The government of Canada would have to get far more comfortable with risk to place its dollars in a more venture capital like way, to invest in those companies, in companies that might want to become OEMs in Canada. So I think Canada could do a lot better at supporting companies, even though they may very well fail, and they will probably fail, and recognizing that has spin-off effects, which creates other companies. As in a country, you aren't placing a bet so much on that company as you're placing a bet on the future of the country, and the benefits that has over the ensuing decades, and that's going to generate the tax dollars and the return on investment, even if the company you place the bet on in the first place is a failure. And I think if Canada did more of that, we would probably be more of an attractive place to invest in than we are today. Right now, venture capital is it's not bad. It's a lot better than it was 10 years ago in Canada. I'll tell you that, but it's still nothing close to what you're going to see for venture capital dollars in the U.S.
So Damon's bikes, from what I read, fuse a lot of sensors, data, AI, robotics, quite high-tech stuff. How would you describe the innovation ecosystem in British Columbia in terms of supporting companies that need those types of skills, just like yours? And how do you see that innovation ecosystem evolving? Where do you see it moving?
I think that Vancouver is tremendously underestimated in terms of the amount of raw talent that we have here right across the technology spectrum. I mean, we have quantum computing, we have fusion, that's a general fusion here, having fusion breakthroughs. We have battery companies and cell phone companies and electronics companies and vehicle manufacturers. And apparently Vancouver is the number of companies, of entrepreneurship style companies started in Vancouver far surpasses the rest of the country. And that the majority of our economy in Vancouver is made up of companies with less than 100 people. So there's a huge number of small companies making up the majority of the economy here, and those are the companies always, at that end of the maturity curve, are where the majority of innovation occurs. At a very young company that can take a lot of risks. So I think that Vancouver is punching way above its weight on that regard, but we're just not known for it outside of Vancouver, unfortunately.
One thing that might draw attention to that is that Damon recently decided, or I don't know how recent the decision is, but Damon decided to manufacture its flagship model in Surrey, right outside of
Yep.
Vancouver. Why was that choice made? What did you see as Canada's key advantages in terms of manufacturing an EV?
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of things. Yeah, so maybe can't quite see it from that angle, but underneath this fairing is a large battery pack that weighs about 250 pounds. So it really is the bulk of the vehicle, and it's called hyperdrive. So you can appreciate that being the bulk of the vehicle, that is the most core thing we can build. And for that reason, we can't outsource that to, Foxconn or some company elsewhere. We need that under our own watchful eye, under our own unique assembly line design to be as efficient and safe and repeatable as possible. So for that reason, our manufacturing plant is actually about 8 kilometers from where I sit right now, which is the R&D center. So we're really co-located between R&D and manufacturing. So as we make changes in the design of the vehicle to improve cost, reduce weight, improve range, we can populate those changes over to the assembly line literally in the same day, and constantly have an evolution to the quality and reliability of the manufacturing that we do co-located away from our R&D center. That's kind of the number one reason why we're doing that here. The other very, very high up ranking reasons are the access to clean tech talent. Like I said, we've been building electric vehicle companies that were, spin-offs of hydrogen companies for the last 40 years in Vancouver. So the depth of knowledge and experience in making electric vehicles from design to R&D to manufacturing has actually been quite high here for a long time. And the third reason is by being a Canadian manufacturer, we don't have to worry about duties and trade tariffs that occur if we're a U.S. company or a European company exporting into those markets. And that's attractive. And then lastly, I think the value of being a Canadian-made product is extremely high, as a how we're perceived to the rest of the world. We're perceived to build really high quality things, and so that has a benefit for Damon as well. So for those reasons, we thought it was best to set up manufacturing here.